I am so excited to kick off our final opening keynote. We've learned a lot over the last couple days, and here at Virtuous, we embody this belief that in order to create change, we have to hold a few things in harmony. And one, Virtuous is a platform that helps nonprofit teams grow global generosity. But you can't implement a platform without people, and you can't implement a platform without harnessing people around stronger processes. We believe that our people, our platforms, and our processes have to be in harmony, as well as alongside our strategies, our principles, how we're building a movement, how we're fueling our mission. And so I am so excited to welcome to the stage Jessica Allen, our Director of Account Management, and Jason Van Loo, our Director of Product, and they're gonna weave together a thread to show you how does responsive fundraising work within the Virtuous platform? How do you take these principles and concepts and apply them within technology so that you can grow giving and create greater impact? Come on to the stage, y'all. Welcome to the Responsive Nonprofit Summit.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for that very warm welcome, Brian.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're so excited to be here kicking off day 3 and the final day of the Responsive Nonprofit Summit.
It's awesome. Such an amazing few days. And said this yesterday, but just so inspired by all of you. We build software here, which is really a great job. But at the end of the day, it's you who are creating the impact, and everything that we build here is to serve you. So it's really an honor to show you the Virtuous platform this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason and I don't get to interact in person very much, so this is a very special treat, and we're excited to be here.
That's right. I'm from the East Coast, from Florida. If there are any folks from Florida, post it in the chat. I would love to see some fellow Florida men and women in there. So that's me, Director of Product. That's Jessica, Director of Account Management. Let's just get on with the content. I think that's
all right. Let's dive into it. We have a lot to cover.
We do.
And 45 minutes doesn't feel like enough time, so we'll dive right in. So we're going to talk to you today about why responsive, how it matters, what tools you can implement with your team to make that happen. So when it comes to responsive fundraising, this focuses on creating personalized donor journeys that meets the needs of each individual supporter. And the key benefit to that is it builds trust and loyalty through personalized engagement. I think donors today really want to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. They want to know that their support is valued. And that's really what responsive is all about. It is creating personalized communication, highly tailored giving opportunities, and strategic engagement approaches to interacting with your donors and your supporters day to day. And I think ultimately it is creating a culture of philanthropy that makes sure donors feel seen and heard and valued. And it builds a long-lasting relationship far past the monetary ask. And so giving is so personal. I think the way people communicate and interact has changed drastically over the last decade. We live in a world that's so plugged in, hyper-personalized. We have online communities today that really know what your interests and needs are before you even know what you want. And I think in this new world, supporters really want to know that their contribution is making a difference and that it matters. There's so many opportunities for them to give of their time and their talents and their dollars. And so that connection is really critical. There's an incredible amount of worthy causes and organizations that they can give to. And so really understanding the why behind a donor's gift is the key to unlocking lasting donor loyalty and generosity. And this time that has shifted kind of how people communicate really coincides with a lot of technological advancements like highly utilized social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the introduction of the iPhone, Netflix, Amazon. They know what you want to watch or buy before even you do because they're listening to your signals and your behavior. And I think donors are accustomed to this kind of highly personalized interaction in their day-to-day life. And so they have come to expect that from the nonprofits that they engage with and that they support. But most nonprofits are still handcuffed to impersonal fundraising systems and outdated tactics that really only prioritize the top tier of donors. And so a lot of fundraisers are really forced to rely on impersonal and unresponsive tactics for the majority of their supporters. And that's really difficult because I think it hinders relationship building. It really prevents and distances the donor from the inspirational and important impact that they're making on your mission. So sending out mass, impersonal, direct response marketing and hoping for a minimal response rate is just no longer a viable approach to fundraising today. I think we're just inundated all day long with content and messaging. And for me personally, my inbox is a dumpster fire. It's tens of thousands of unread emails. It's awful. But if you're a Virtuous customer, don't worry, my professional inbox is not that way. It's inbox zero all the time. But simply, this model's unacceptable to the modern donor. They want to feel connected. They want to feel acknowledged. And that's really important to changing the way we approach those relationships. So it's essential to adopt a new approach. And I think that's really the key of what we've been talking about all week with the Responsive Nonprofit Summit is that it's time for a revolution in how we approach fundraising. It's time to reimagine how we're thinking about these donor relationships and what we know about the way we've been approaching those. And I think the key is really keeping donor-centric experiences at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. So even going back actually to this graphic, if I can go back, there we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
50% turnover in donors every year, and there's not necessarily something specific listed here, but I would imagine a lot of that is because of the impersonal way in which nonprofits have traditionally engaged with those donors. If you're not engaging with folks in that sort of personal way, why would they be compelled to kind of stick with your organization? So, as we think about that, this is a great quote from Jennifer McCrae from the Generosity Network. She says, "Resources will tend to flow naturally towards you when you focus on the most important aspect of the fundraising process, and that's creating human connections." So Brian was just talking about that a few minutes ago, right? Like this is why we're all here. This is why we're at the Responsive Nonprofit Summit. Is because the human connection, that's what it's all about. You know, like I said, we build software here, we build tools, and that's great, but at the end of the day, it's about the people on the other side of the screen.
Absolutely.
It's about the donors, it's about fostering these human connections. And so we believe that there's a better approach. We believe that this sort of old school, traditional approach just doesn't really work anymore. And this new approach is this idea of responsive fundraising. And so there's really 4 key components to the responsive fundraising framework. And the first is listen. And honestly, you know, if you're married, if you have kids, if you've been alive for more than a minute, you know that this is such a critical component of any relationship, right? Are you listening? I mean, how many times have we been in a conversation with somebody? Or I've been in a conversation with my kids, and I can tell they are absolutely not, you know, listening to me. So the first critical component is we have to listen to our donors. We have to look at their behavior. What are they trying to tell us? What are they passionate about? What are they struggling with? Like, where are they in life? And the more that we can understand and listen to them and be able to track that, then the better we're going to be able to relate to them, and the more personal that relationship is going to be ultimately. And then next, we need to actually connect with them where they are. So it's not just about, you know, the sort of spray and pray, trying to connect with them in all of the traditional sense, but it's figuring out, based on how we've listened to them, where are they? Like, how do they like to interact? How do they like to integrate? How do they like to engage? And then connecting with them in those appropriate channels, in the ways that are going to be meaningful to them. And then once that happens, then we want to suggest. We still want to ask. You know, it's not just about building the relationships. We still want to ask them for funds. We still want to ask them to volunteer. But we want to do that in a way that, again, is personal and meaningful to them. And so you can see how this sort of builds on that underlying theme of understanding your donors and doing doing what it takes to cultivate those relationships as opposed to looking at them as just another wallet or another number in your database. And then lastly, sort of this last step is an ongoing thing, is we're always learning. As we listen, as we connect, as we suggest, we're going to learn more, right? We're going to know more tomorrow than we do today. And so that's just a continuous flywheel. And so as we go around this sort of circle, we're going to continue to learn more about our donors, which is going to help us listen better, which is going to help us connect in more meaningful ways, and ultimately build those better relationships. And so here's how it kind of plays out across multi-channel campaigns. And so here you have Barnabas, you have Jenna, you have Courtney, and then you have Neil. They're all different, and they all engage with your organization in a different way. And so you should be engaging with them in the way that's going to be most meaningful to each one of them. And so maybe Barnabas gives a first gift, and you want to get him into that new donor journey. And so you can do that across, again, the campaigns that he's already in, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe he really prefers SMS messaging over email, or maybe Jenna really likes to talk on the phone. Knowing those things is going to help you craft some of these multi-channel campaigns so that, again, it matters to each one of these individuals. Maybe it's an example of Courtney, who hasn't given in 13 months, right? And so she gets put into a lapsed donor journey, and you can start to engage with her to maybe try and bring her back into the fold. Or Neil is just somebody that actually you don't really even know all that well. Maybe he goes to the website, clicks on a PDF to download, and then you can start getting him into that initial funnel to, potentially bring him in as a longer-term donor. All right, so that's kind of the philosophy behind responsive fundraising, why it matters, how we can start to think about building better relationships with each of our donors, but how do we actually deploy this practically in kind of a day-to-day format? And so we're going to go through a few features and a few kind of general areas within the Virtuous platform just to show you how this can take place. And ultimately, Virtuous is the responsive fundraising platform. I mean, that is the foundation on which all of our tools are built. And I can say for the product team, like, this is more than just kind of a buzzwordy marketing thing. Mm-hmm. We have a great marketing team. They sit over there. But this is more than that. Like, we actually look at this and say, you know what? This is the way that we should be doing fundraising. And the way in which we engineer software, the way in which we design the user experience is all built around this. And so let's kind of dig into some of the specifics here for how Virtuous is structured to be able to enable you to kind of deploy responsive fundraising, but also look at some practical examples of Virtuous customers and how they're actually using this to grow generosity across their organization. So the first piece here is really a suite of responsive tools, and it's not limited to this. There's 5 here on the screen, but we have a large amount of responsive tools, as I would expect we would, because we're the responsive fundraising platform, right? But one of these is responsive and custom dashboards. And so when you first log into Virtuous, you're going to see that we've got a number of different dashboards that you can engage with. Some of these are pre-baked, like the responsive dashboard, and so we've got 12 widgets on there that is sourcing data. It's going to be applicable to really kind of a health check, like, how is my organization doing responsively? Are there areas in which I can improve to, again, be more responsive, build some of those better relationships? And so that can be a really helpful tool for your organization. But you can also create custom dashboards. You can customize them for the individual user within your organization, or maybe there's a team, and you can bring in different widgets, you can bring in different data points, you can even build out custom reports and kind of put them on there. So you can really tailor the data visualization experience to your own organizational needs to help you, again, listen, right? Like, a big piece of this is around listening to your donors. What are they telling you? What is their giving history telling you? What is their activity on your website telling you? All of those kinds of things. Also be able to monitor cross-channel behavior. And so on the marketing side, it's essential for us not just to engage in a multi-channel campaign, but then be able to track, like, how are my donors engaging? How are they more apt to engage with me over email, and maybe dig into some of the metrics over there, or are they engaging more on the web? Are they engaging more through SMS? all of the different ways that you want to communicate and kind of engage with your donors. You want to make sure that you're tracking that so that you can measure that over time. Because again, learning, that's going to help you be all that more effective moving forward. Virtuous also has some pre-baked scores. So we have a financial score, we have a social score, we have some other ways that we're serving up some of these actionable insights to you. And really what what the purpose of these tools are is to give you more insights, but to also create actionable data. Data isn't super effective if it's just kind of static sitting there in a storage warehouse, right? You want it to be actionable, and so a lot of these responsive tools are meant for you to take action. And then lastly, what we have listed here is something called the Responsive Listener. It's just a little snippet of code that you can put on your website, and this is going to do a lot of things. It's going to open up some of that, incoming data around like web activity, things like that. But then on giving forms, it's actually going to open up something called the Smart Gift Array, where you can really tailor specific suggested, donation amounts depending on the donor. So somebody comes to your website, we know who that donor is. We can serve up, specific amounts to you versus me, and it's going to be tailored to that specific donor as opposed to just kind of a generic thing. So those are kind of 5 of the responsive tools that we have. And Jessica, maybe you can kind of dig into those a little bit with some specific customer examples and how they've utilized those to grow generosity through Virtuous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my favorite parts of my job is just seeing our customers actually implement these tactics in their day-to-day fundraising strategies. And so a couple examples I want to share with you today is Living Hope Dream Centers. They did an incredible job. They set a fundraising goal. They exceeded and almost doubled the amount that they raised through their end-of-year appeal. And they did this by segmenting their communications and really tailoring the content based on each segment that they were sending out. And so it was hyper-personalized, very focused, and super effective. And by segmenting those communications, they really were able to see the result of kind of how they implemented that segmentation and track the effectiveness of it so that, they had a strategy in approaching this, but then they were able to reflect and make pivots for future sends and knowing like, okay, here's the segments we really want to hone in on. And so they really implemented the entire fundraising cycle because they also did some retargeting through Virtuous email marketing, which I thought was really smart, is they're just kind of seeing how people engage and how can they re-engage, because we are living in a hyper plugged in world. We get a lot of messaging day to day. Sometimes it's going to take 2 to 3 or messages or more to really engage with somebody. So I just really thought that was a brilliant strategy in how they approached it. The second example is a longtime customer of Virtuous. It's an organization called Zoe, and they've done an incredible job over the years of implementing more and more responsive tactics and strategies, one of which is leveraging data insights of how their donors are interacting with them, including wealth data insights. And I think that is something that's really key for a lot of our customers, is pulling in that wealth data, understanding what the capacity is, and tailoring those asks accordingly. And one of my favorite stories is an organization who they were heading out to have a donor lunch with a particular donor. They ran a wealth screen real quick before they left the office for this lunch. Turns out they were meeting with the millionaire, and they had no idea. So just by having that insight, they were able to tailor the ask and net thousands more than they thought was possible because they had that information. And I just think that's so powerful and really important for organizations today who might have limited time, and you're setting up these donor meetings, you want to make them as impactful as possible. I think too, the great news is this can be done in a really automated way. You can set up so many automations to help you leverage insights and make these decisions on the fly. And I think one of our customers, the Foundry, really reported how they've implemented automation to increase donor touch points for thousands more than they did the previous year. And because they're engaging more often at the right times with the right content, their donor lifetime value has absolutely skyrocketed, which I think is just incredible for them to really hone in on, because they've done so much donor stewardship at the right times, and that has created such a measurable impact.
Yeah. Yeah, at the right time with the right content. I mean, that's the name of the game right there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. What a great story too about the lunch meeting. And then maybe they were like, hey, let's go to the steakhouse instead, just because we know that too, right?
Let's pick a nicer restaurant.
Well, speaking of automation, that's kind of a great segue into our next really responsive tool. And at this point, if responsive is fairly new to you, you may be asking or thinking like, this is awesome. I completely believe in this, makes a lot of sense, but how in the world am I gonna deploy this across my organization? I mean, I've got thousands of donors, I've got a short staff. There's no way that I can do all of this hyper-personalized activity, and we totally get it, right? And that's where automation comes in. And really, it's honestly a lot like magic because of what automation can do to really free organizations up to do more of what's important, which is actually engaging with their donors, not necessarily doing all of the, not that it's busy work, but it's a lot of work that has to be done if you're talking about writing letters and making sure that donors are segmented properly and tracking all of this information. There's just a lot that has to exist in your brain space. And so we have a tool and essentially building workflows to be able to automate a lot of the things that maybe you're doing on a regular basis that should be done by software. That's a huge reason why we build software is to enable us to do things that are much more important. And so this really allows you to deploy responsive at scale. We can make sure that we're doing multi-touch attribution, so really tracking where gifts are coming from, making sure that we're segmenting donors properly. We can set up behavior-driven donor journeys, and so there's all sorts of ways that you could structure these depending on whatever behavior you want to track, or depending on what your end outcomes are. You can set up workflows based on a variety of different donor behavior that would lead them down to a particular donor journey, whether that's first time, whether that's lapse, whether that's cultivation, whatever it might be. You can set those up. Real-time segmentation, so being able to again segment donors, make sure that they're in the right buckets, that they're coming through the right funnels without even having to think about it. It's kind of setting these up, set it up once, and then let it do its thing.
Yep.
And again, you can go back to focusing on what's important, which is building those relationships. And you can also do this internally. This is one of the underrated things, I think, of folks who actually utilize automation at Virtuous, is you can do this internally. So you can optimize your internal team's efficiency as well with automated tasks and making sure that portfolios are added to and things like that, so that your team can become a lot more efficient internally, saving time, saving money, and again, enabling and freeing you to go do the things that are super important. So we have some awesome customer examples here. So yeah, tell us about those, Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. I think automation can feel really scary and intimidating at first, because there's kind of this sense of you're letting go of control. But really, if you're focusing key activity on things like data hygiene and creating processes around that, automation becomes a huge time saver and actually equips you to build deeper connections. And so we have a couple examples today of what that could look like, one of which is Mel Trotter Ministries. They really leverage multi-channel communications, so using email, direct mail, SMS, and phone calls, even beyond that. And they do something called the Keep in Touch campaign. And so they leverage our tool called Letters on Demand. They send a personalized postcard that has a beautiful photo on the front with someone who has been positively impacted by their programs and services. And on the back, the copy is so genuine and authentic. And it really is just saying, like, thank you so much for the impact that you're making. We see you, we value you. You are making a huge impact on our organization and our community. It's not asking anything. It's just very engaging and very acknowledging, I think. And as a donor to so many causes, for me, if I got a postcard like that, it would be extremely touching. And so I imagine it's very impactful for their donors who are receiving this. Another example is a longtime customer, Made to Flourish, and they have created a variety of donor journeys that, based on the why of how people kind of enter their atmosphere, whether it's through an event or volunteering or elsewhere, they enter them into donor journeys based on that information, and they kind of cater it accordingly. And I think that really has equipped them to measure success and engagement and fundraising based on these different segments, to know, like, hey, we should really hone in on people who enter our atmosphere through an event attendance versus volunteering or making a first-time donation. But maybe you're still feeling intimidated by automation. That's perfectly okay. I think one of my favorite features at Virtuous is our automated tasks feature. You can do this directly from your home screen, your home dashboard in Virtuous. You can create an automated task, and Virtuous will recognize specific milestones and surface up these tasks for you or a member of your team to reach out and engage with your donor. And you can utilize it for tasks like first-time donor, first recurring gift, single or lifetime gift thresholds, or even just celebrating a birthday or anniversary. And so it's really showing you these opportunities to engage further and deepen those relationships, which is super incredible.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite features as well. You know, there's this concept called a second brain, right? So platforms like Notion or Evernote, you know, the whole concept is we only have a certain amount of real estate. You know, an old Sherlock Holmes quote, he's only got, you know, so much in kind of his brain space, and so he doesn't want to clog it up with unnecessary information.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this is not that keeping your donors' birthdays is unnecessary information.
Sure.
Super important, but wouldn't you rather have the software manage it for you, and so that you don't ever miss a birthday and you don't even have to necessarily think about it. So it's those kinds of things. That's really the power of automation, and foundationally, I think one of the real values of a platform like Virtuous is it's here to enable you, to equip you by doing a lot of these tasks, so you can get that out of your brain, and again, be able to focus on the things that are just much more important for you to be spending your time on.
Absolutely.
All right, next is major donor pipeline. So a core tenet of responsive fundraising is that we want to treat every donor like a major donor. Which is absolutely true. But you still have major donors, right? You still have the millionaires that you're doing well screens on, and
Yes.
and all of that. And so we want to make sure that we have tools to equip you to engage with those major donors, and to make sure that we're tracking activities, things like that. So this is also one of my favorite features too, is we have a fully customizable gift ask pipeline. It's a Kanban style where you can customize the different statuses, you can customize all sorts of things, be able to track a gift ask through multiple different stages, be able to assign tasks and reminders, be able to assign multiple solicitors to it, all sorts of different things that you can do. And it's a really great visual representation. So you can get out of Excel spreadsheets, you can get out of things that are just not super visual and are honestly hard for me to just be able to track things. And so spent a lot of time designing this, really happy with it, and it's super valuable to folks that just need to be able to track things through the major donor pipeline, and then also be able to monitor and manage portfolio. So this is a relatively recent feature that we shipped towards the end of last year, but being able to do more with kind of portfolio management, and then again, going back to what you just mentioned, automate tasks and reminders. So keeping your team on top of their portfolio, making sure that major donors are taken care of. All donors are taken care of for sure, but if there is that segment of major donors, obviously makes sense. You want to have a little bit of a special touch. You want to make sure that you're tracking things, kind of keeping a hawk eye on it. And so we have a variety of different ways that we enable you to do that.
Absolutely.
So what are some examples of that you've seen?
Yeah, I think the amazing team at Connecticut River Conservancy, they are a tiny but mighty team. They have 3 dedicated development staff, but they have a sizable goal for sponsorships from corporations year over year. And so previously to utilizing Virtuous, they were managing all of this in a giant spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And that becomes really cumbersome over time. And when they added a second event to really hone in on this engagement cultivation, they realized they just needed a better system. So they moved it all into the Virtuous gift ask pipeline, and it has proved super effective because not only can their gift officers now track and update progress for their personal asks, but the development team can see a holistic view of how things are going and where they're moving towards, so they really understand kind of where they're at as a whole team. And I think that's really critical. It almost fosters more collaboration.
Yeah.
And as part of that, they've created some bi-weekly meetings where they all connect. They make sure that the gift asks are in the appropriate stages, their updated statuses, so they have a very accurate view of how things are going. And that's made them so much more organized and equipped to meet their goal, which I think is super incredible.
Yeah, and what I love about that example is what you first said. So tiny but mighty. There's almost maybe a misconception that a tool like a gift ask pipeline, Kanban style visualization like portfolios, that's just for the big guys. That's just for the folks that have a true major donor team, and it doesn't have to be that way. It can be a smaller team that can utilize a lot of these features inside of Virtuous. Don't be intimidated by it. We have purposely designed these to be intuitive and to be really available for all sorts of teams of all different shapes and sizes, which is awesome. And then lastly, we come to a relatively new product. So a product that we brought into the Virtuous fold last year, and that is Vomo. Vomo is a volunteer mobilization platform, and so generosity is more than just dollars and cents. It certainly is that, but it's not limited to that. And so when we start talking about how do you grow generosity in time, how do you grow generosity in skills, how do you grow generosity in things that are more than just what's in your wallet, that's really where Vomo shines. Really robust volunteer management and check-in tools. So we have a lot of organizations that utilize it for on-site volunteering, so being able to bring in a lot of volunteers on site, check them in, do a lot of the just general management that you're going to need to do, event to event, managing your volunteers, handles that super well. And it also helps to provide that, what we call 360-degree constituent view inside of Virtuous. So again, if you go to the donor profile in Virtuous, we're going to be showing you all sorts of things. Activity, we're going to be showing you, obviously, giving history. We're going to be showing you suggested asks. We're going to be showing you tags and segmentation and relationships. But we also want to show you other things. How are they also being generous to your organization with their time, with their resources, right? And so we have an integration. So bringing Vomo data into Virtuous, adding that to the constituent view, so that it just helps you be more effective in reaching out to each one of those donors. Being able to put those volunteers into groups and then message those groups. There's a lot of really cool messaging functionality there, because if you volunteer at an event, anything like me, I'm terrible with letting my wife and kids know where we're supposed to be and all of that, and so SMS messaging, things like that, super helpful. And then there's a really great mobile app experience as well. So Vomo is a great product, like I said, brought into the Virtuous fold last year, and you've seen, even in sort of the short time that we've had it inside of the Virtuous ecosystem, just some really great success stories. So why don't you talk us through kind of one of those here? Yeah,
I think you really touched on it, is the value of seeing the full impact a supporter can have on your mission, your organization. And so there's such an overlap between donors who want to give their time and volunteers who are giving their time but might want to contribute financially in certain instances. So seeing that holistic view of your supporters really helps you even be more responsive and tailor your communications accordingly. And so one great example is Maine Organic Farmers and Gardens Association. They're the country's oldest and largest organic organization, and they are very volunteer powered. And so they have tons of volunteer opportunities that they have really needed to hone in on and ensure that those are being fulfilled to keep their mission moving forward. And so they needed Vomo to help them both analyze trends and needs and also equip their organization to provide a very positive volunteer experience to engage those people who wanted to give their time and talents. They have an annual fair, and this fair alone has 10,000 volunteer shifts that they were once manually doing on paper.
Yikes.
Just tons of paper, which I can't even imagine how they were doing this, let alone for their team to analyze what was working well and what wasn't and what the impact was, but for the volunteer experience as well. And so when they moved to Vomo, they were able to create very specialized landing pages that gave a lot of information on not only the areas of need, but the specific shifts and opportunities. So volunteers knew exactly what to expect when they showed up to help. And that just drastically changed their experience and equipped the Maine Organic Farms team to really be able to analyze the impact and the data as well. So with Vomo, they were able to offer that experience, and within the first year, they had registered over 1,600 volunteers and recorded nearly 20,000 volunteer hours, which is absolutely incredible. But I think one of the coolest features of Vomo is that you can assign a financial impact to those volunteer hours. So within the first year for Maine Organic Farms, this equated to just under $500,000 impact from their volunteers contributing those hours, which is just incredible.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. What a cool organization. What a cool story. And gosh, I don't know how they did it before. Honestly, that's just insane.
I agree.
All right, well, that was just 4 areas of how Virtuous can help you deploy responsive fundraising to your organization. There's a lot more. We have a short amount of time. Otherwise, we could both talk about this all day. But I did want to share a little bit about what's new and then what's kind of coming up. So I'll go through this relatively quickly, but we're always building here at Virtuous. Constant change is definitely one of our mantras here. We're always looking to make the product better. We're always looking to innovate on new areas. Ultimately, again, if you go back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, not for the sake of just building cool stuff, but because we want to equip you with tools to have better relationships with your donors, ultimately to grow generosity. And so last year, we released a new ticketed events product, and so you can create online ticketed events, so online registration. We also released enterprise social sign-on, or social sign-on, single sign-on. It's actually not social sign-on, I shouldn't say that. Enterprise single sign-on. So for a while, we've had the ability to do like OAuth, SSO through Google and Microsoft. But if you are a larger organization or if you have some unique single sign-on needs, we have a lot of functionality there so that you could tap into your existing, Active Directory, or something like Okta. We have multi-currency support, and so what's really cool about this is for our giving forms, we've always been able to accept donations in a variety of different currencies, but now inside of Virtuous, you can actually track currency in some really unique ways. You can visualize different currencies. Again, because we recognize, not all donors are shaped the same. They don't all come from the same place, and we want to make sure that all of that data is tracked appropriately. Virtuous payments, so a lot more payments functionality. And then also pledge forms. So this is both what's new and what's coming. It's in beta right now, but we have a lot of new functionality to add online pledge capabilities to our giving forms. So the ability to set up a pledge, set up a recurring pledge, do all sorts of interesting things there. So for organizations that do a lot of their giving through pledges specifically, this is going to be really valuable. And then what's next? So these are some of the things that are coming up in the near future. All of these are customer driven, so that's a huge component. You're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but we want to hear from you, your feedback. You're on the front lines, and so the more that we can tap into your reality, understand your pain points, understand what's going to be the most valuable to you, that's what we want to build. And so a lot of what we build and what's coming up next is driven by all of our customers. So we've got a lot of really cool features in our reporting tools, so a lot of enhancements there, including third-party reporting tools and having some more integrations there. Some new signals products. So again, we've talked a lot about data. We've talked a lot about listening to your donor. A lot of the stories that you've talked about have been pulling that data in to be actionable. So we're going to be building more around our signals product. we have some amazing new giving experiences coming. I can't really say a whole lot about it, but I'm really, really excited about it, and think it's going to be incredibly valuable. So stay tuned for that. And then we're specifically building functionality around acknowledgement. So, it's kind of like Istanbul to Constantinople and that whole song. So like receipts, acknowledgements, they're kind of the same thing, but not like people call it different things. We have a really robust receipting tool, but specifically for like tribute acknowledgements, specifically for like pass-through gift, soft credit acknowledgements, things like that. It's been a little challenging to do in Virtuous, so we're actually building some new functionality around that. So that you can send out specific acknowledgements for some of those specific giving use cases. So just a little bit of a sneak peek as to what's coming up next. So I will kick it over to you to kind of take us home.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many exciting things happening at Virtuous, but I really just wanted to highlight this quote that came from one of our incredible customers. I love it so much because I really think it calls out a core value and thing that our team focuses on all the time, which is people are our differentiator. So we really want to provide a human experience that helps you leverage technology, and that's kind of what we are most extremely proud of and passionate about here at Virtuous. So we'll kind of just briefly highlight what you could expect if you're tuning in as a prospective customer considering moving to our platform. So moving to a new platform is a huge decision. It's a big transition. We know you're not making that lightly. So we really want you to know that our team takes it very seriously. We have a very detailed process that we want to take you through to ensure your success. And we really think of ourselves as more than a vendor, more of your long-term supporter of your fundraising success over time. So with our 4 phases, we have a comprehensive customer journey that ensures that you receive personalized service that caters to your specific needs, hands-on coaching so that you know how to kind of prepare and leverage the platform, a consultative data migration that's very detailed and understanding how you're moving data from one platform to another, and then regular check-ins to help you optimize utilization and adoption over time. So our CS team really wants to walk beside you every step of the way and ensure your success if you were to choose to move to the Virtuous platform.
That's awesome.
And I think as a director of account management, just to close us out, I really want to ensure that if you're tuning in as a current customer, you know we're here to help you maximize the tools. Jason and I talked about just a few of those available to equip you in being responsive with your donors. But we want you to know that we're always happy to continue that conversation. So your account manager is available to hold executive business reviews and have those strategic discussions. We also offer the Virtuous Academy, which is a very comprehensive training tool to help you maximize your understanding of Virtuous, free training webinars, and then our Virtuous Insider, which we hold every Thursday. That features tips of, customer success stories, training, updates on what's coming from the product, and just hands-on tools and tips as well.
Awesome. Well, just to kind of, tie all of this together, hopefully, as you've seen both the responsive model, some of our features, some of the ways that we help organizations deploy responsive fundraising, some of the customer stories, our hope is that you're starting to think, okay, how could we actually deploy this across our organization? And thinking about, okay, listen, connect, suggest, learn, where might be some areas that we can grow. Maybe there's some areas you're doing really great in, and maybe there's some areas that could certainly use some growth. Mm-hmm. And then tying that up to some of the really key fundraising growth levers. And so when we think about acquisition, we think about retention, cultivation, ambassadorship. Hopefully you're seeing that sort of tie-in and how that matches some of the responsive fundraising models. So whether it's acquiring new donors, having things set up so that you're able to track those donors when they come in and then be able to take action on them. Retention is huge, and you know what? Retention doesn't just start when donors lapse. Retention is an ongoing thing. It's a relationship building thing, and so responsive fundraising, if done properly, can be a huge lever in helping you grow retention. Cultivation, so we've talked a lot about this, but how do you build better relationships? How do you cultivate what already exists, meeting donors where they are, treating them as humans, making it personal, just goes a long way. And then ambassadorship. So whether it's volunteering, whether it's giving of other resources, how can you create some of those environments, some of those spaces, so that not only folks can give of things that are not dollars and cents, but even start to bring other folks into the fold as well.
Yeah.
Bring friends, bring family members, talk about your organization, because that's such an effective strategy in helping to grow that. And with that, that is our talk for today. So I don't know if there are any questions that have come in. We have just a few minutes. We probably could take a few of them in the closing stages here. It's great to see all of the folks in the chat. Thank you so much for engaging in that way. I don't know if we have any or not, but
We're glad you all tuned in. Hope it was valuable and kicking off a great day ahead.
yes, day 3. Brian,
Beautiful.
turn it over to you, my man.
Jason, Jessica, thank you all so much. Couple quick resources. If you are a Virtuous customer, we also have an open expert bar. So Scott Richards and the training team are running the expert bar stage. It'll send you to our booth, and you can meet one-on-one to ask them any questions. If you need any ongoing help, we're here as a resource. And also, if you're interested in learning more about Virtuous, we also have a demo stage. So we have nonprofit advisors that are running demos and sneak peeks behind the curtain into the platform all throughout the summit, live today, and you can rewatch from day 1 and day 2. And lastly, if you're looking to share advice and network with each other, the lounge is open. So head on over to the lounge, connect with each other, ask each other questions. We're here to support. Thank you all so much. We're going to take a 10-minute coffee break, and we'll see you back here at the Responsive Nonprofit Summit.